Giorgio, very
Pleasure.
nice to meet you
How you
here.
doing?
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming to Brazil.
Well,
We have been expecting this moment for quite some time.
all right. And it's great to finally meet you in person because you and I have been in contact for at least 15 years.
At least.
So this is wonderful. Thank you.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
Great.
See, since now you're in Brazil, let me tell you a few things about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Brazilian ufology has been one of the most active in the world
Okay.
for many years.
Yeah.
And we have contributed to the worldwide ufology with lots of very heavy cases,
Right.
hardcore. Now we have the first abductions, we have the first sexual relations inside spaceships. We have cases that have been investigated with Brazilian Air Force officially. It's heavy. And more to your specific area, we have so many archaeological sites all over the country.
Okay.
Pyramids in the Amazon, Pedra de Ingá, that I know that you are willing
Yes.
to visit,
Okay.
and so many others. And I want to invite you to stay longer, or to come often to
Yes.
Brazil, and let's go investigate these cases.
Done. You tell me when and where, I'll be there.
Fantastic, and let's take this to the rest of the world.
All right.
Thank you, okay. Now Marco has a few questions for you,
Yes.
so do I.
All right. Let's get started.
Okay, my first question, Giorgio, is why the guys did not stay on planet Earth?
Who said they didn't stay? I never suggested that they left. I think that because we are an experiment of the extraterrestrials and we are their offspring because they changed our DNA at some point, that perhaps some of the extraterrestrials left. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, because if you create an experiment or if you create some sort of a life form, I think somebody stays behind to observe the progress. And this ties into the whole modern UFO phenomenon, that those UFOs that are here are not here since 1947 with Roswell, but they've been here the entire time. In fact, you can look at this in the Middle Ages. There are some paintings at old churches from the Middle Ages that show what seem to be UFOs up in the sky or with beams coming down and things like this. So the UFO phenomenon has been around forever, and I think that there certainly is a bridge between the ancient astronaut theory and modern ufology.
Okay, so...
And by the way, what I also need to say is, you asked, why did the gods leave? I want to make clear to all our viewers that there are no gods. There never were any gods, there never will be gods, because they were simply space travelers that our ancestors misinterpreted as gods, because our ancestors, while they were as intelligent and intellectually capable as we are today, one thing can be said for sure, that their technology was primitive. Their technological frame of reference was way lower than what we are familiar with today. So, if today extraterrestrials were to descend from the sky, we would immediately say, these are extraterrestrials. But back then, when they came down from the sky, of course our ancestors said they are gods, not because they were gods, but because our ancestors misinterpreted them, because they had no idea that what they were witnessing had something to do with nuts and bolts technology. So when we talk about gods, it should always be with a lowercase g, a small g.
Okay, but at the meeting that they never left, do you think that we are on the verge of a large-scale contact, a 6th or 5th grade?
That's possible. I think we will make official contact within our lifetime. If this happens tomorrow or in 50 years, I have no idea. But I think that we are right now in a paradigm shift, that more and more people are embracing the idea of extraterrestrials through shows like Ancient Aliens, but also through Hollywood movies and entertainment shows and things like this. Now, I completely disagree with many of the Hollywood movies. I think they're great entertainment, they're great fun to watch, but to subscribe to the idea that if extraterrestrials come, they will colonize us and destroy us and kill us and all this stuff, that's entertainment. Because, yes, and that's my, no, I think it's fantastic entertainment.
So?
Yes, of course, it's 2 hours of escapism. I mean, movies are a fantastic way with which to change the paradigm or the mindset of many people, because if the extraterrestrials were to show up in the next couple of hours, the three of us and many of our viewers would be delighted, very happy. Oh my God, it's finally happening. But the great majority of the planet, they would run around like chickens, completely terrified and, if I may say so, panicked. Because, you know, we've always been told in our entire existence that we are the greatest. There's nothing bigger than us in the universe. We are the crown of evolution, and that's simply not the case.
How do you figure out that we can diminish the panic worldwide spread when they come?
Well, this is why we have to talk about the extraterrestrial question, and that's why shows like Ancient Aliens are so successful. I mean, now we have over 132 hours of television, all in which we explore the possibility whether or not extraterrestrials have visited us in the past. And as we all know, in many of the ancient texts, we have this promise of a return. And so they will be back. And you know, my good friend and mentor, Eric von Daniken, always says that it is up to us to embrace this idea, otherwise we will have the shock of the gods. And you know, I think that we have enough intellectual capacity right now to understand that we are not alone in the universe. Because in the 60s, you didn't have many scientists, or especially bioastronomers, who would explore the question of intelligent life out there. You would only have a handful, like Frank Drake, Francis Drake, also Francis Crick with the DNA and all these things. But today, you will hardly find any scientist who says we are alone in the universe. Pretty much everyone now says, yes, they're out there. But now the taboo topic is not that they're out there. The taboo topic is, okay, we know they exist, they're out there, but they were never here. And this will be the next change, that in the next 20 or 30 years, even scientists will come to the conclusion that we have been visited.
What is still missing for they to reach to that point? Because it's so obvious to so many people.
Well, yes, it's so obvious to so many people, but I think that, you know, on an individual level, we all have to be ready on the inside to accept or to look at these pieces of evidence and agree with them. That's on an individual level. And there is nothing that I can do, there's nothing that you can do or you to convince someone. You have to be ready for yourself. Because, you know, sometimes a lot of people come up to me and they say, well, you know, we like Ancient Aliens, but how come you never present any concise evidence? Yeah, anything convincing. And I'm like, have you been watching the show? Have you been reading the books? There's so much. So this illustrates people are either ready for this or they're not. And so it's up to the individual.
Yeah. It takes me to another question. Now, the theory of ancient aliens tells us a lot about our past and how different it is than what we learn from the history books and etc. It all has to be rewritten eventually. But what the theory of ancient aliens tell us about the future of mankind?
I don't think any history books have to be rewritten because the history books are already correct. Even the archaeologists say that many of the ancient monuments were built for the gods in order to worship the gods. So it's all already in our history books. We just have to change the meaning behind who these gods were. Because you have the archaeologists who agree that many of the ancient structures and many of the ancient texts talk about these gods. And then archaeologists say, all right, mystery solved, they tap each other on the shoulders and they say, we now know everything. And this is incorrect, because we now have to explore the question, who were these gods? Because what we are being told right now is that all these stories of these gods descending from the sky were nothing else but the imagination of our ancestors. And I disagree with this, because you will not find any reputable psychiatrist or psychologist who will say to you that an idea comes out of a vacuum. Every idea comes with a spark of inspiration. Somewhere it began. And so we now have to encourage the archaeologists to explore the question, who were these gods? And sooner or later, they too will come to the conclusion or to the realization that they're not a figment of our ancestors' imagination, but that our ancestors were the eyewitnesses of some extraordinary events. So nothing has to be rewritten. It just has to be understood that, you know, when we talk about gods, they were extraterrestrials.
Yes, and what does the theory of ancient aliens tell us about our future? Do you have any reflection of what happened in the past, happening in the future?
My suggestion is that we one day, we human beings, will become ancient astronauts on a different planet. So, let me explain. And this doesn't happen tomorrow, it doesn't happen in 50 years, it may happen in 200 or in 300 years when we have the technological capacity. One day, we will travel to another planet. And we're not just going to roll the dice and go somewhere. We will go somewhere where, through our calculations and our instruments, we will know which planet to go to that is Earth-like. So that perhaps we can have a life there or whatever.
But 16th century life like it was on Earth, perhaps an ancient life. And we're going to be their gods.
Well, I was about to tell you that.
Yes.
So let's say that we arrive at a far distant planet. And let's assume for a moment that intelligent life exists on that planet. And not from the 16th century, but from life from 10,000 years ago here on Earth. Barely out of the caves, not even knowing how to make fire. So what will we do? Will we just stand back and watch? Or will we teach them a few things? And the answer is yes to both questions. Of course we will first stand back and observe the society to learn what's going on. But then, if the society is still primitive, technologically speaking, we will teach them a few things in mathematics, agriculture, engineering, astronomy, all these different things. Now, how will we appear to them the very first time? Will we just pop up like this? Or will we descend from the sky? We will descend from the sky. And so imagine if you knew nothing about technology and you see a plane coming down from the sky. You will freak out and you will say, I have just met God. When we all know it's not God, it's a plane. So we then make contact, we teach them a few things, and then it's time for us to leave. But in order to make sure that this planet will always remember that we were there, we will teach them how to build some gigantic structures, and it will not be us, the extraterrestrials, who built the structures. It was the local population. And how will we arrange the structures? We will arrange them according to our constellation or our solar system, which is Earth. So, there will be a time, 10,000 years in that future of that planet, when there will be people exploring the same questions that we are talking about now, that there are these legends and mythologies of a long time ago, someone descended from the sky. And everybody will say, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. Our ancestors were just thinking about this thing. This never really happened in real life. And so, this is my suggestion, that we will become ancient astronauts on a distant planet. And by the way, also the ancient astronauts that visited us here 10,000 years ago, their planet too was visited at some point by ETs. And then you can play this game backwards, and if there ever was a beginning, who knows?
So when someone asks, where is the evidence? Many say, we are the evidence.
Yes.
You agree with this?
I absolutely agree, and that's a fantastic observation because, you know, according to the ancient astronaut theory, and you know, different, for example, in the Bible it says, and then God created man in their image. That's what the line says. Now, in the original Hebrew, God is not a singular term, it's a plural term. Elohim means the gods. And then all of a sudden the sentence makes sense. And then the gods created man in their own image. So all of a sudden that makes sense. And having said that, and by the way, the Bible or the Old Testament is not the only ancient sacred text that talks about this stuff. There are multiple versions like this. And so I think that the big secret, which is not a secret, otherwise I couldn't talk about it, is that when they land and the door opens and they walk out, we will look at ourselves in the mirror. Because, you know, the question shouldn't be, what do the extraterrestrials look like, but do we look like the extraterrestrials?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hey, Giorgio, I want to offer you some of the Brazilian UFO magazine.
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you.
This is the oldest
Oh, nice.
UFO magazine in the world. It's been on for 35 years.
Oh,
We'd
congratulations.
like to have an interview with you, we'd like to have an article, and we'd like to invite you to come to Brazil for lectures too.
All right.
You're
Perfect.
always welcome, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having
it.
us.
Great questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Hi, George. Hi, George. That's really nice to meet you.
Hello. Pleasure.
And I would like to know, like, you have been, I think, in 56 countries already researching, and I would like to know which case were the most important for you. Like, which one was the most impressive?
Now 57 with Brazil being here for the first time. No, by the way, I think it's more than 56, but I've lost count. You know, I don't care anymore. But I think, for me, the most important place is in the highland of the Andes, on the border between Bolivia and Peru, right next to Lake Titicaca. There's Tiwanaku, the archaeological site of Tiwanaku, and about 300 meters from Tiwanaku is Pumapunku. And Pumapunku, you are defied by logic, because some of the things that you see there, for the age that they are, it doesn't make any sense, because you have these gigantic platforms made out of red sandstone, and then you have smaller blocks that are carved with great precision, but they are made, or the stone is gray andesite. And you know, both types of stones bring with them challenges for that place. So, you know, I urge everyone that if you have the time or the means, to go to Pumapunku as soon as possible.
I have just been there.
Okay.
3 months ago.
Oh, fantastic.
I was with our friend Antonio Alvizuri. Great guide. And we saw everything, Pumapunku, Tiwanaku, Kalasasaya. It's really amazing how they
It's something else, and it's unique in the world, because I have been to many places, and what I find is so fascinating is that there are many connections between ancient sites, you know, around the world, but Pumapunku, I'm sorry, stands alone.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder why.
Are you willing to do a trip with the Brazilians to explore these places?
Of course.
And teach them how to do it?
Sure, you set it up, I'll be there.
All right.
I just took a group of about 26 people in September of 2016, and they all came back as changed people. So they loved the experience.
Yes, yes. I've been quite a while in the Andes, and those are really transforming experiences.
Yes.
Titicaca, especially those places that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. See, I have a question for you. Maybe it's not your area, but there's a connection. We are in Brazil very much into crop circles. We call them agroglyphs here. And I have been just...
That makes sense, that word.
It does.
Yeah.
And just 2 weeks ago, I was in England with Gary King, our friend as well. and we explored some crop circles there, but we have our own here. Do you see any connections with the crop circles between ancient aliens theory and the phenomena that's going on for 40 years?
Well, I don't know if there's a direct connection to ancient aliens, but I know that I think the earliest crop circle that was reported on a piece of paper or in a newspaper was from England around the 15th or 16th century, where they called it the mowing devil.
Yes.
That was referred to as the mowing devil. And you know, up until about 2 years ago, personally, I really didn't care much for crop circles because I deal with ancient astronauts. But I do think that there is some sort of a connection between ancient astronauts and the modern day UFO phenomenon. In fact, it's fairly clear that there's a connection. But 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet a plasma physicist in England for a taping of Ancient Aliens, and his name is Dr. Elcho Hasselhoff. And he has made it his life's mission to investigate these crop circles. And it was an incredible experience because we commissioned professional crop circle makers to create a crop circle. And then, you know, we went to look at the result of it. They took about 2 or 3 hours for them to make a crop circle. A very, very primitive, simple one. Nothing, you know, gigantic. But with Dr. Hasselhoff, I was there looking at the ground, and you were able to tell that this crop circle that was created with boards was created by artificial means or by modern means with this, you know, with this board, you know, and walking across the field. And I asked Dr. Hasselhoff, I said, so how do you differentiate what you think is a real one and what is a fake one, like this one, the one that was just created 3 hours ago? And he said, it's a very simple question, or a simple answer. And then he showed me physical evidence how you could differentiate between a real one and a modern day forgery or a fake one. And what he showed me blew me away, because with all these wheat stalks, if you look at the stalk of the wheat, every so and so many inches, you have what's called a node.
A node, yes.
And in his research, and he showed me pictures of this from real crop circles, he showed me evidence that some of these nodes became elongated by 300%.
Yes.
Now that's a thing of the impossible in real life, unless this was achieved by some other means. And as a plasma physicist, he, you know, explained to me multiple theories of how he thinks this was done. And at the end I asked him, so will you continue your research? And his answer to that was, I have no other choice. So if a plasma physicist says this, I think we should all listen to him. Because there's no question that there are fake crop circles, but then there are the real ones. And your guess is as good as mine how they came about. I have no idea.
Yeah, in spending a week in England, just recently, I spoke with many UFO researchers and circle researchers, crop circles researchers, and they all have, it's a common sense, they all have an understanding that are very old intelligences, that are very well connected to Earth, that are producing them, and perhaps along with extraterrestrials. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
Okay.
Here in Brazil, we have had this phenomenon for only 9 years. Mm-hmm. And we have found last year 2 very intriguing evidences of artificial formation of how they were made. First one, we collected samples from the interior of the crop circle.
Okay.
Sample of the plants, sample of the sand and earth. And we analyzed it microbiologically and found out there was no microbiological life anywhere inside the crop circle. But outside, in all the plantation, in all the crop, it was normal, abundant.
Here is an interesting point to this story. This is very fascinating. Read Eric von Daniken's book, Voyage to Kiribati, because he went to Kiribati in the mid-1970s, and there is a stone circle on Kiribati. It's in the South Pacific,
Yes.
It's an island.
I read the book.
There you go. In which he describes that there is a circle and anything living that goes into it will die. In fact, there's birds that fly over it and then they fall out of the sky. So, now that you mention that there is this phenomenon here in Brazil, who knows if there's a connection between Brazil and Kiribati? Because also there, and of course Eric, luckily, didn't step inside the circle, so that's a good thing, you know.
Right.
But you know, so there are these strange phenomena that seem to be going on this planet, and you know, I think it's great that there are people that are investigating these things.
Oh, we are.
Because there's something there.
We are devoted and committed to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. See, in closing, I just want to let you know that an editor in Brazil just published a book about the series, Aliens in the Past.
Okay.
Right? And it's Laszlo Editora from Belo Horizonte, and they wanted that you know that.
Okay.
You are everywhere in that book.
Great.
And we're going to make sure that you get a copy.
Yes, please.
Or more than once.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for having us.
Of course.
And we meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This weekend.
Until next time. All
you,
right.
my friend.
Thank you.